You might have seen the adverts for this game on YouTube, you might have got it in your Reddit feeds, but Last Epoch is pretty much advertised everywhere currently. So is it a good game? The simple answer, yes, it's an incredibly good game. I've literally played through the entire story, got into the island / mapping, whatever you want to call it, and the game has been absolutely amazing. Well, is it better than Diablo 4? Of course it is. A game with a mount pack just as expensive as the actual game itself. It's not even a contest. But is it better than Path of Exile? Well, this is tough. Path of Exile has been around for a lot longer, so if you look back at some of the initial iterations of Path of Exile, obviously I think Last Epoch stands much taller, but Path of Exile at the moment, with all of the gameplay modes, all of the delve-in systems, the blighted map systems, everything, there's just so much to do for every single player. When I play Path of Exile, I'm like, oh, I don't feel like doing mapping, oh, let me go do a bit of delve-in, let me go do this, let me do that. There's so much variety and content you could do, and a lot of games do struggle with that. I don't know about Last Epoch, I've only really got into endgame currently, so it kind of seems like most of what they have is a bit of a map-in system. Now, obviously, the item chase is really great, and I think that there's a lot of positives in that, but I don't really feel the variety of Path of Exile, although I have to admit, I really do prefer it to Diablo 4's systems. Well, if it's such a good game, why does it have mixed reviews on Steam? Well, they've basically just had tons of server issues. They're a very small development team. This means that they can't actually cope with the amount of players that have been interested in the game, and I think a lot of advertising and also a lot of very popular streamers playing the game obviously have drawn a lot of hype to it. I think a lot of players at the moment are looking for really good games and just different games in the style that they love. A lot of people love ARPGs, and I think the massive letdown from Diablo 4, I think to a degree put people off of trusting another ARPG. But then again, I think because of Last Epoch's very cheap price tag, I think a lot of people took a risk on it, and I think it's really paid off. The game is really fun to play. Now, what sort of player would pick Last Epoch over Path of Exile, Diablo 4, Van Helsing, all of those other games? I think a player that enjoys supporting small developers is a massive one. The development team obviously very good, and also what they've promised and what they've delivered has been incredibly good. They really are trying to make Last Epoch a mainstay. I think also a player that enjoys a good amount of theory crafting on how to get the best utility out of their skills is going to enjoy this game a lot. There is so much in terms of each individual skill's trait tree, your own passives, trying to combo those to try and get amazing DPS, survivability, and just general mobility is really fun in this game. I also think that a player that kind of is smarter than Diablo 4's stupid system, but not as hardcore as Path of Exile's extreme system. I'm not gonna lie, when I play Path of Exile, I have no clue what half of the things do, how to go get those items, everything. It feels like you need a PhD to build every single build in that game. So playing Last Epoch, there is obviously quite an advanced system and trying to get the most out of it, but it never feels like you don't know what's going on. You know, when you play Path of Exile and the guys are smashing together things to create these like super crazy maps where they need like an aura carry and all of these things, you're like, man, I don't think I'm ever going to get to this hardcore level, and you kind of almost get slightly put off of like how extreme some people are taking it. But when you play Last Epoch, you're like, no, this makes sense, like number go up, good times. Another few things that I personally enjoy that I don't feel like other ARPGs have got in them, I really do like the way that mobs chase you in the game. It feels like you can stack them up quite nicely. There's no real like rubber banding in terms of like the mobs kiting range. So it allows you to kind of pull masses of mobs together and then just mow them down. I really also do like the variety in mob type, mob density, abilities, things like that, especially the mini bosses. I have to admit, I found in the late game so far, it's kind of got slightly repetitive. There were one or two quite unique boss fights, but obviously, like I said, this is their first iteration. They look to be building on this, which is quite exciting. So I think you'll definitely get a lot more mob diversity than Diablo 4. But yeah, you're probably not going to get as much of Path of Exile just yet. I also really do enjoy the speed and the abilities in the game. So the speed in terms of things like Path of Exile was always frustrating to me because the game is so fast paced. If you stand into some attacks like more than 2-3 seconds, you're dead. So you got to carry on moving, carry on blitzing through, pulling, and just kind of dump loading on top of all the enemies. where a game like Diablo 4 I felt was very slow, but maybe, you know, some builds probably do alter that slightly. I felt like Last Epoch's got quite a nice balance between the two. It's not ridiculously fast, but there is obviously a lot of motion and speed to it. And also I do really like the impact of all your abilities. It feels like you're absolutely dominating. Whenever you get a good build, you get a good rhythm going, you can just mow through most enemies and bosses, so that's quite fun. So now that we've gone through all of the positives and I've been riding the developers as much as possible, what are the bad things and things I think could be a problem? Well, first of all, I think that because they are a small development team with probably a very small budget, they have struggled with the server issues. Now, they do obviously offer an offline mode, but the thing that frustrates me is that you can't, you know, take an online character and play it offline and then vice versa. I wish there was a way that they could do it. First of all, having an offline mode is awesome. It's a dream come true, because sometimes you're just in areas where you don't have internet, or your internet's laggy, or maybe the servers are bad. You could just play offline, but then you always get that feeling like, maybe I'm going to play this with a friend one day or something. I don't want to be locked out of that eventually. But yeah, I think server stability could be a bit of an issue for the interim, especially if more people do want to play the game. They are going to struggle a little bit more. But I know that the server problems have put a lot of people off. But don't be fooled by that mixed review. The game is actually fairly good, especially if you are one of those people that's just going to play solely on offline. I wish that they created a system maybe where you can use one character for offline and online, but maybe they're just excluded from leaderboards or things like that, or they can't use certain functions or things like this, just so that if you do ever want to play with a friend one day, you have that option to do it. But like, yeah, it kind of sucks that you have literally all your offline characters and then all your online characters. As you play through the story and finish it, probably one of the nicest boss fights was the final boss fight. Really enjoyed that. And then going into the end game, once you've gone through the story and you do the mapping island system, I think it's great and it's really nice. It's kind of that sort of content where you can play it and just kind of go through them. I haven't obviously gone very far through, so I don't know if it does change it up, but it kind of seems a bit samey at the moment. Like, I really don't mind it. I mean, to be honest, I tried to level in, you know, Diablo 4, but once I got to about level 60, 65, I was like, I'm just bored. I don't want to be doing this. I mean, they literally dropped the XP rates off from about a level 50 or 54, I can't remember where, but it dropped off completely. At least with Last Epoch, you seem to keep a good momentum in terms of leveling. Like, literally pretty much every single island / map or whatever you do, you tend to get like a level. Maybe every second map you get in a level, and that's kind of nice because you still feel like you're progressing. They haven't stunted the late game to try and create and pad out content. They're letting you get to end cap, and that's great because you really want to see your build absolutely shine. And that's where the danger, I think, of like modern games in general comes in. We compare a game like this to games that have been out for decades or years or things like that, where they've got so much in-game content for us to do, and then we get frustrated that we're like, it's too boring, there's not enough. Games like these will transition and add content to it, so whether you can as a player, you know, wait for that content and play the game, or maybe play it now, put it down for a bit, and then come back when they bring out new content. I just want to be realistic at the moment. I don't think there is that much content compared to other games like your Path of Exiles and things like that. But it's very hard to do that as a new game to launch and then all of a sudden just have all this content for players to do, especially people that know life of the game and are literally end cap now being like, what do we do next? Where's more content, you know? When's it coming? And getting frustrated in that sense. So in summation, I would say that Last Epoch is a good game. I think it's a gem in the rough. It kind of reminds me of that, you know, Valheim v Rising kind of style of game where, yes, it's not made by a massive developer. It's a good game. It's going to continue developing. It's going to bring out new content, and I think it will attract a lot of loyal fans to the genre of game, especially if you're a player that wants to get into ARPGs or a player that just enjoys ARPGs and maybe you had your fingers burnt by Diablo 4. Don't worry about this game just yet, and for the price tag they put to the game, it's not that bad. I still use my Diablo 4 mount in WoW as a painful reminder of how bad I messed up my $70. At least with Last Epoch, I feel like already, even only playing the game for a couple of days, I feel like I've got my money's worth, which is a good sign to be like, yeah, okay, I enjoyed it. Like, I'm happy. That's it for today's video. If you do enjoy yourself Last Epoch, please drop me a comment for another character. I really want to play something after my Spellblade and after my Marksman. I'm kind of playing Marksman offline and Spellblade online. We'll see how we go. Trying to kind of play something I would normally never play. If you enjoyed the video, please drop it a like and subscribe. All the really awesome stuff. It really helps the channel grow. And if you didn't enjoy it, thank you anyway for watching. Hopefully I'll see you guys in the next one. Cheers.